The Mad Dog. Yes, that's right. That's me. Father, how could you trust that woman?
This year's Fallen Grand Hero Battle Unit is Linus, or a morph version of him. Linus had a very interesting time in Fae. His regular form is already a Grand Hero Battle Unit, so we're double dipping, and when he debuted, he actually came with Basilicos that he shared with Raven. It already had a refined, so the guy had a refined weapon on release. He then later got his own weapon called Fang Basilicos with its own refine. Despite only having 2 forms in Fae, Linus will now have 3 unique weapons to his name. A bit disappointing, but Fallen Linus is once again an Axe Infantry unit. He has 42 HP, 46 attack, 43 speed, 36 defense, and 20 res. Linus essentially has thrown his extra base stats all into attack and speed, and he has a speed super boon which is quite good. Linus will have one of the highest base attack stats in the game, so the guy will be doing some damage. His third unique weapon is going to be called the Dead-Fang Axe. 60 might grants plus 3 speed, and if Linus has more than 25% HP, he gets plus 5 to all stats. He gets more bonus stats equal to X, and then he inflicts debuffs equal to X on the foe. Linus then gets true damage on hit equal to 10% attack and 40% damage reduction for 1 hit. The X value for this weapon is equal to the current bonus on the foe's stats. Calculate each stat independently. Dead-Fang Axe is not the most complex. It is pretty much a stat ball type weapon, and it has Freya's buff stealing mechanic. Anakos has the in-combat pseudo-panic effect, and while similar, that is different from this type of buff stealing. If the foe has plus 6 attack, Linus will inflict minus 6 attack to cancel it out, and he gets plus 6 attack instead. This happens in combat, so the foe still actually has an attack field buff, but numerically it gets cancelled out. Basically, Linus is not afraid of enemy field buffs, and will have 46 attack and speed total, while in combat he pushes past 50 speed easily. You then get some extra damage scaling off attack, and Linus can easily hit 70 plus attack, which is at least plus 7 true damage. He then gets 1 time 40% DR. His base defense is okay, but his res is a little shaky, so don't expect Linus to be a super tank. He does want to kill the enemy first with his high attack and speed stats. For the rest of his base kit, Linus gets Dragon Fang for his high attack, and Guard 3 is okay, but not the best B skill. Linus will have a rare inheritable passive in Panic Smoke 3. After combat, inflict the panic status on the target and foes within 2 spaces. This skill has been 5-star locked, so Linus is the easiest way to get it. Panic Smoke 4 is pretty good, so not a bad fodder skill to have. There are some interactions with Panic and Dead-Fang Axe, but I will talk about that more later on in the build section. If you plan to merge Linus, he will get plus 1 HP, attack, and speed for the neutral nature. Nothing wrong with that, but Linus has that speed super boon, and that is very enticing. Dead-Fang Axe grants a flat plus 3 speed, so with the super boon, Linus hits 50 speed flat at no merges. Pretty impressive stuff. For Heroic Rail comparisons, we got Valentine's Effie 3 months ago, and well, Linus has the exact same attack and speed as her. Linus will have far more defense in exchange for lower res, and obviously, he gets his very own weapon, unlike Effie. She can use the Arcane Downfall decently well, so that evens the playing field, although technically Linus will get a refine in like half a decade or so. To me, the more interesting comparison is with Hans, who has Argelmer. Hans is not as fast, but Argelmer is a high risk, high reward weapon, perfect for a Berserker type unit. Linus can get a ton of stats with damage reduction, while Hans gets a free follow up, and he uses his 40% DR to facilitate a reflect for his counter attack. I would say if you want to bunker bust slower units, Argelmer may be better, albeit Hans needs to survive whatever hits him first. He can forgo no follow-up with his free follow-up attack, but if you want a speedy axe unit with no follow-up, the Dead-Fang Axe would be better to me. As for young Boyd from last year, his large war axe does grant plus 10 attack and speed, neutralizes attack and speed debuffs, and has slightly more true damage, but that only happens on odd turns, and Linus basically has 9 more speed at base, plus another 5 in combat. He also has 40% DR, which Boyd does not get. There are 3 other Heroic Axe Infantry who are fast in Ninja Shamir, Ninja Hana, and Pirate Lithis. Linus really goes all out on offensive stats, where those 3 put points into resistance. For fun, let's discuss OG Linus. Obviously, even with max Dragonflyers, he is still outgunned. The extra stats are spread out, so he is tankier though. Regular Basilicos is a slaying plus life and death weapon with their fine. Fang Basilicos has slaying, bonus damage and speed, and actually has the in-combat panic effect for speed and defense only. For speed buffs, this is equal to Dead-Fang Axe, but for defense buffs, Fallen Linus gets tankier while OG Linus deals more damage. However, Dead-Fang Axe also affects attack and res buffs, plus it has 40% TR, that's a pretty good amount. Admittedly, the slaying effect alone still has a good amount of value. If you wanted to build or use both Linuses, the OG form may be able to manipulate specials better, and you can sort of catch up in speed. However, Fallen Linus should deal more damage, and it's tough to beat damage reduction if you want to survive. Compared to demoted Axe Infantry, once again, there are a lot of older options, but the newer ones are female Shez and Atlas. Shez focuses more on speed and res, Atlas more attack and physical bulk. Like Valentine's Effie, Fallen Linus goes all in on attack and speed with way less magical bulk. For playstyle builds, we have another speedy berserker type axe unit. Fallen Linus has great offensive stats and can take a hit or two since he has 40% damage reduction. The biggest addition for Linus should be no follow-up. You can use the Sacred Seal, but for general usage, I would kind of prefer it in the B slot, and then you could take that from Lumera. With no follow-up, Linus won't take free hits from free slower units, and that's good because the 40% DR is one hit only. It also lets him use his high damage to double those slower units. For a basic player phase setup, you could use Swift Sparrow and keep Guard in the kit. We did get Swift Sparrow 3 from the Mini Merrick Ephemera last month. By keeping Guard, Linus can prevent taking big special counterattacks, and that should let him survive to get his follow-up attack. You can swap over to a mixed phase stat booster like Attack and Speed Ideal or Speed and Defense Solo from Nier's Yarn. Double Ideal or double Solo skills can work, although Ideal skills want a bonus from say something like Attack and Speed Oath or Rouse. For some other B skills, you could run Desperation or Wrath, but Dead-Fang Axe has that 25% HP condition, so you actually don't want to get super low. For specials, you could ramp up to Dragon Fang using Heavy or Flashing Blade, but you could also settle for the lower cooldown Draconic Aura, Luna, Moonbow, or Glimmer. Aether could work as well. Regarding Panic Smoke 3, it's an interesting choice to give Linus because if you panic the enemy field boss, then you won't actually trigger the boss stealing mechanic on Dead-Fang Axe. It's not technically anti-synergistic, but the stat increases work differently depending on what buffs the enemy has. For example, if they have plus 6 attack, Linus will negate that and gain plus 6 attack for himself. He will deal more damage. If the enemy has plus 6 attack and that's panicked, then Linus won't gain damage, instead he takes less damage since the enemy basically now has an attack debuff. The same idea goes for defense and res, but for speed, it doesn't matter. Additionally, if the enemy is fully buffed up and then panicked, also doesn't matter. This will change if you upgrade to Panic Smoke 4, like how the Grand Hero Battle Map does it. The Tier 4 inflicts -3 debuffs, which stacks with panicked buffs, and Linus also gets full penalty doubler. From our previous example, with Panic Smoke 4, that plus 6 attack field buff now turns into -12 attack, and the stacking extra debuffs will bring it to -18 attack overall. Due to Panic Smoke 4 inflicting debuffs to all stats, it actually would just be a full win for Linus. Dead-Fang Axe is good for first engagements where Panic's not active, but after you activate it, it's a better trade-off. It also deactivates any enemy skills that rely on having those field buffs active. For other premium skills though, Dead-Fang Axe could work nicely for dodge stacking. If you use a tier 4 dodge B skill, you can get 70% damage reduction for first hits and then 50% for all other hits. I would say this allows Linus to go with the more generalist, speedy dodge distant counter builds. We did just get a new DC skill from Fallen Byleth. If you're alone, it's the best option since it boosts attack and speed, plus it can work on either phase as well. My only concern is facing mages due to the lower res stat. As usual though, this build really wants no follow-up to mess with slower units. While he may not have slaying, you could run Vital Astro with Special Spiral 4. You have to charge it up first, but if you want to utilize Linus's high attack stat, then you do kind of want to be able to pierce damage reduction skills. As always, Finish 4 is a great complement for this setup. For future combat, Special Spiral should recharge Vital Astro, so that's going to proc its own dodge effect for later on. On the topic of damage output though, maybe attack and speed Hexblade can be used to surprise high defense stacking units like Brave Dimitri. Maybe you could pair that with Nino or the other Black Fang mages. It won't be as effective, but Time's Pulse and Flashing or Heavy Blade are still options for cooldown reduction. Velocity with its no guard effect can be good too. If you want to focus on pure stat swings, then you could run Attack and Speed Menace, Oath 4, or the bonus Double Sacred Seal. You fully buff up Linus while he leeches off enemy field buffs as well. If Dead-Fang Axe isn't to your liking, Linus can just run anything Valentine's Effie can. Arcane Downfall for more cooldown reduction, and the Ninja Brave Axes are perfect for Linus's 2 best stats. In the end, should you promote Fallen Linus to 5 stars, stat-wise he isn't almost exactly like Valentine's Effie with excellent top of the class base attack and speed. He will have slightly higher physical bulk though. Regarding his skills, Panic Smoke 3 actually very good to see here, very valuable if the tier 4 shows up more often. As for Dead-Fang Axe, it's not bad, but it's a pretty simple weapon. Good amount of stats, 1x 40% DR, small bonus true damage, and the stealing enemy field buffs is nice. However, if the enemy does not have buffs, then that part of the weapon is useless, and you can't really control that. If you wanted a high damage berserker not necessarily focused on pure speed, Hans feels like a better pick. His reflect mechanic and free fall up are great to have. There is also the always looming presence of arcane weaponry. Arcane Downfall doesn't have damage reduction, but slaying plus bread type cooldown is just so versatile. It also comes with healing, and it blocks follow-ups for sustain. It's a fair option, just that obviously it would be nice to run Linus with his own unique weapon. Personally, while Fallen Linus is definitely not as disappointing as certain Fallen Grand Hero battle units, I would not say he is a super standout at the moment. Unfortunately, being an Axe Infantry put him into direct competition both in base stats and unique weapon options from units in this current BST generation. He could have maybe used his sword this time, but well, Lumera also exists as well. Still, Fallen Linus is a perfectly serviceable free-to-play unit. His offensive stats are fantastic, although be careful of DR piercing and magical attacks. That's all I got to say for Fallen Linus. Gen 7 is starting to get a bit Axe Infantry heavy for free-to-play options, but at least most of them came with unique weapons this year. Makes things a little more interesting to discuss. Everyone is actually pretty fast among that group as well, so honestly, I would not be surprised if we get our usual slow Axe Infantry Heroic Grail or Demote unit for this generation eventually. Go and beat the Grand Hero battle for Fallen Linus and check out my breakdown of this year's Fallen Heroes banner. Next up, we'll talk about this month's Ephemera, and it's another pretty good batch. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.